Well, after many episodes, Prometheus has finally been revealed in a rewarding but predictable episode. Hey guys, remember Arrow, Season 5, Episode 15, Fighting Fire with Fire, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. As you guys know, I have been loving this season. I know this episode aired 2 weeks ago. I know you guys probably don't care anymore, but either way, I can't review tonight's episode until I review this episode, so I might as well. And overall, I really did love this episode. I think that this is probably the most intense episode we've had this season. I expect it to be really intense because of the way the last one left off, but we finally know who Prometheus is, which I'm really surprised the show actually uncovered who Prometheus is, but I'm very happy they did. I really am interested in seeing where the rest of the season is headed, but let's just get into this episode because I definitely did love it overall. Even if the reveal was a bit predictable, I like where this is going. So we start off at City Hall. Oliver and his team make their way in past the reporters trying to get a statement. So Oliver, Lance, Willa, and Dinah Leah and Dinah get to Oliver's office. Oliver figures that Prometheus leaked the information, and he admits that he doesn't really have a plan yet, but warns that if they do lose the office, then Prometheus does win, which obviously is what Prometheus wants him to do. So after Dinah leaves, Thea says that they should deny and obfuscates, and Oliver suggests that they tell a version of the truth. So Oliver gave Green Arrow the benefit of the doubt, and Lance goes to address the reporters, and Oliver tells Thea to make things right with Susan, because obviously she really did not make things right before. So Chase then comes in. He gives Oliver his letter of resignation. Oliver says that he okayed the cover-up, but Chase warns that Oliver won't really be mayor for long, especially because of what now went down. This might not go well for him. So Chase then briefs the team on the council's procedure for impeaching Oliver as mayor. It's not a criminal trial, and Oliver can't defend himself. So Chase again offers to resign, but Oliver asks him to be his lawyer at the hearings, and he'll very much regret that once we get to later in the episode. But we then got to 5 years ago. We see Gregor prepares to shoot Anatoly and Oliver, who puts his gun to Gregor's head. Gregor says that Anatoly is poisoning the Brodva with American scum. Victor and the other Brodva men arrive. Gregor tells him that Oliver and Anatoly are traitors, and Anatoly are as a challenge. Although Gregor refuses to honor it, Victor says they have to follow the Brodva code, and after a moment, Gregor agrees. Oliver lowers his guns, and as the Brodva team leads them away, Anatoly tells Oliver that he bought them a little time. So as we know, they're planning on killing Gregor. They're planning on doing what they can to, get rid of most of the Brodva, things like that. So obviously they're just trying to wait it out and see when the best time is to kill him, because they're not just going to do it now. They need to find the best time to do that, and I do like the way that's going. So Curtis is then at the bunker working on 2 T-Spears. Renee then comes in. Curtis tells him that he's using his intellect rather than his physical skills, and the T-Spears are autonomous drones, one with offensive and the other with defensive capabilities. Curtis figures that Paul doesn't have to worry about him now that he has the T-Spears in his arsenal, if he can get them to work. So Felicity's watching a newscast about the impeachment when Oliver comes in. He says that Chase is representing him. He asks about the data pull from Amanda's house, and Felicity admits that she hasn't had any luck yet. So Oliver says that Susan isn't returning his calls since Felicity and Thea got him fired, and he needs Felicity's help. So Felicity says that Oliver is his girlfriend, he has to fix it, but Oliver points out that she won't talk to him, and he's facing an impeachment. She can't really do anything about it. That's his girlfriend, and not hers. And after Felicity agrees, she tells Oliver that she figures that he'll beat the impeachment because he's the hero. In the end, he'll be able to do it. So in his lair, Vigilante's watching the newscast about Oliver's impeachment. He aims one of his guns at the screen, and I like that Vigilante came back into the forefront, because I remember when he was introduced, I said, oh, he's not going to play that much of a role into the show. Well, I stand corrected. It seems like he actually is going to play a big role, and I'm interested in seeing what he really ends up doing. It seems like he actually is responsible for a lot of collateral damage, and I'm interested in seeing what he ends up doing, throughout the rest of the show. But this episode definitely tells us that he is actually a big part of this. But later at the courthouse, Oliver, Chase, and Dinah arrive. Chase goes to the hearing room. Oliver sees Susan and tries to talk to her. She says that she's reporting to her blog, and he's going to say that Oliver doesn't take the job seriously. He says that he's trying to restore her credibility, but Susan really isn't interested. She's going to basically just impeach him because she really doesn't believe him at this point. So in the hearing room, Councilman Cullen sums up the case that Oliver worked to hide the fact that Green Arrow murdered Billy. Of course he didn't, but at the bunker the team watches the broadcast. Paul then calls Curtis and finally steps aside to answer it. Diggle knows what Felicity and Thea did and wonders what's going on with her. He points out that she has done darker things twice, and Felicity shows him the Pandora data sent by Helix. She insists the Pandora is just a tool, but Diggle says it's a weapon depending on how she uses it. And we know, of course, that Helix approached her before, so we get more into this in this episode, but M.E. Holcomb testifies that she originally found that an arrow like arrow uses killed Billy. She states that Chase came to her and told her to modify the report to incriminate Prometheus. So Collins then asks why she did it. Holcomb says that Chase told her the request came from Oliver, and Frank then testifies about why Oliver told him about how Prometheus was the killer. He admits that he's not sure if Arrow is actually the killer, and wonders why Oliver's determined to protect the vigilante. Why would he want to do that? Again, to their knowledge, this is just some random vigilante. Why does he give a shit? So after the hearing recesses, Oliver and his team leave. Lance says that Pollard is their primary supporter since she can call in his favor to hear if he's impeached, and Chase then goes to her. Oliver's limo leaves. Thea suggested they ruin Billy's reputation to move the focus on him, and Oliver then refused to consider it. Lance says that Collins is the swing votes and that he's going to be the one to get them out of this. But Vigilante then steps down from the limo. He opens fire. The limo then flips over. Vigilante says that if Oliver surrenders, then he'll let the rest of them live. Dinah gets out. She hits him with a sonic scream. Oliver gets Lance and Thea out. Vigilante takes down Dinah. Thea jumps him. He throws his clear, and Oliver out to face Vigilante. He then takes cover. Vigilante opens fire on him. Police cars then pull up. Vigilante leaves before they can arrive, and as the police secure the crime scene, a paramedic checks Oliver per concussion protocols, but Oliver then suspends the protocols, and Lanston comes over, says the driver's fine. Chase then arrives, figures that Vigilante is after Oliver now that he's considered a criminal, and Oliver then plans to head to the office, but Chase tells him that by amending bylaws like concussion protocol, Thea says she'll go back to the office and says that they're working while he goes to the hospital. So Thea then goes to the bunker, tells them what happened. Diggle and Renee then hit the streets. Thea privately asks Felicity if Pandora contains any information on Collins, because they really don't trust him. So she wants to use the information against Collins, but insists if it's politics, it's not blackmail. So obviously they need to be careful what they do. So at the hospital, Dr. Schwartz tells Oliver that his CT scan is low. However, she's required to keep him there for a few hours for observation, and Schwartz warns that being mayor and Arrow is unsustainable mentally and suggests that he get a friend. So once the doctor leaves, Oliver tries to call Susan. He gets her voicemail, so constantly throughout the episode, he's trying to make things right with her, but it's really not working out, as we can see. But then we get to 5 years ago, and at the Broadway bar, Anatoly tells Oliver that the challenge requires every captain to listen to him. He explains that the men who voted will be killed if Gregor is found guilty. Oliver says that they have to find evidence that Gregor's deal benefits himself and not the Broadway. So again, this is a very common situation, very similar situation to what's going on in the present, with them trying to blame Collins for what happened. So he tells Anatoly he has to go. Anatoly warns that Oliver has to have a captain with him in the hour before the hearing begins, and Oliver says that he'll lose him. So they're kind of outnumbered at this point. They don't know if this is really going to work, but Dinah and Uni then collect the casings. Dinah then notices a piece of Vigilante's visor on the ground, and at the bunker, Diggle and Renee tell Felicity that they found nothing. Felicity hasn't found anything trying to trace the ammunition. Dinah calls, says that her sonic cry knocked off a small piece of his visor. It has circuitry, meaning that it's manufactured. Curtis says that his T-Spears can trace the tech, and Dinah says that she's bringing in the visor. And as Curtis and Renee go to the workbench, Curtis tells his teammate that Paul asked him to dinner, and he figures he's going to get his men back. And Renee isn't convinced, but Curtis figures that Paul is ready to reconcile. They had that whole fallout in the mid-season finale, but Curtis really does feel that Paul is over, and that Paul finally is ready to move past it. And I like seeing that Paul finally seems like he's over it, and finally seems like he's okay with what's going on. So I like that. I like seeing it overall. So Chase then notices Dinah hanging up. She claims it was a family call. He says that he'll log in the visor's evidence, takes it, and leaves. And then we get the moment we've all been waiting for, where Prometheus then finds Vigilante on the rooftop, and he says that Oliver is his. He throws a star at Vigilante. Vigilante catches it, says that he'll kill Oliver. He opens fire on Prometheus, and it very much reminds us back with Church, when Church, as we know, was saying that, when Church was working with Prometheus, and Prometheus was trying to obtain information from Church. It very much reminds us of that. But Prometheus attacks him. He shoves Vigilante off the rooftop, removes his hood, and we find out that it's actually Chase. Yes, Chase is Prometheus. He takes to himself and reports a Vigilante sighting, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually really like this reveal, because we all kind of expected him to be Vigilante. In fact, there was a time when the show spoiled that he was Vigilante, and that's because he is Vigilante in the comics. So I like that the writers actually took it one step forward and made Chase Prometheus. However, now we kind of have to see Chase in the flashbacks, at least, now that we know that Chase has been out for Oliver for a long time, but we'll have to see where that ends up going, because I think that definitely is interesting that we now know, like I said, that Chase is in fact Prometheus. But at the bunker, Felicity sorting through data on the car crash that killed Colin's wife. She closes the data screens as Diggle arrives, but Diggle knows that she's up to something. Felicity explains that Colin's wife crashed her car on purpose, and Colin's then covered it up, and the city needs Oliver. So Diggle says that that isn't Felicity. She says that it is. He tells her that her superpower is empathy, but Felicity misses she's out of it since Billy died. She hasn't really been able to have that empathy since he died. She hasn't gotten over it, and no one's really cared. She's watched all of them use darkness to fight a dark world, but Diggle warns her that every time they end up risking being burned. And at the station, Chase meets with Frank. He insists that Arrow got played, and when Chase sets down the evidence bag with a visor piece, Dinah then snags it. Felicity told him what she found. Oliver then visits Thea's office and asks if she sent the information on Colin's wife. Thea says that she hasn't sent the email yet and says it's time to play hardball. She lists all the things that Oliver has done as a mayor and tells him to let her do what she has to so he can keep helping, and Oliver then tells her what Diggle said about getting burned. Thea insists that it'll be fine. He reminds her that she destroyed Susan's career. Now she's using blackmail, and he asks her when it stops. So obviously, they're not really on good terms at this point, but Oliver then breaks into Kovar's manor, setting off the motion sensor elsewhere to draw off the guard. He goes over to Kovar's computer. He brings off the financial records, and Curtis then attunes his T-Spears to Vigilante's tech. He confirms it can pick up the signal from the visor. It tracks the rest of the visor, and the team decides to go after Vigilante without Oliver, because at this point, Oliver might not be the one to go after, because, Green Arrow already is in hot water. They might as well go after without him. So Chase then visits Oliver in his office, and at this point, when we see Chase, every scene with him takes a whole new meaning, because we now know that Chase is in fact Prometheus and wants to bring Oliver down, and he reports that Pollard won't testify without Colin's blessing. The only other way to save Oliver is to offer up either him or Billy, and Chase warns if Oliver doesn't do it, then they'll impeach him. Oliver figures that he needs to take his case to the public since the council won't let him testify. He says that he's thrown Arrow under the bus, and that night he goes out to address the press. And like I said, every scene really does take a new meaning now with Chase, and I really did like the way the episode did that now that we know who Chase really is. So the team tracks the visor signal to a building. Felicity confirms it has line of sight to where Oliver's giving a speech. She confirms the 6th floor is under renovation. They head there. Vigilante darts a guard unconscious. He sets up his sniper rifle. The team then notifies Dinah, who tells Oliver what they've learned, that Vigilante's waiting for him. Oliver figures that he'll be fine if his team is there. He goes to the podium, and the team then moves in on Vigilante's position. He sets up a motion sensor that Vigilante planted. Oliver begins his speech and says that Arrow murdered Billy, and Vigilante opens fire on the trio. The T-Spears roll toward him. Mr. Terrific chuckles. He says he's found a new use for it as it explodes, and when the smoke clears, the team discovers that Vigilante has moved to the roof. He opens fire on them. They take cover. Spartan gets close enough to Vigilante to engage him in hand. Vigilante managed to shoot him in the chest, and Oliver said he tried to protect Arrow because he's a cop killer. He didn't think the city could afford to lose another hero, and as Vigilante moves in on Wild Dog, Mr. Terrific throws the second T-Spear at the killer. It shoots past him. Mr. Terrific says they aim themselves. The T-Spear comes around in his own. It explodes. Mr. Terrific gets Wild Dog up as Vigilante slips away. Spartan then joins them alive thanks to the Calvar Cisco added to his uniform, and Oliver says that Arrow has gone rogue. They must punish him for what he has done. He says that Arrow's keeping Star City from being the best it can possibly be, and basically, again, he has to try to make Arrow look as, he has to try to make him sound like he's not Arrow. So later, Lance and Thea meet Oliver in his office. Lance says the city is still deliberating and asks what it feels like to turn himself into a villain, because again, he's trying to shape Green Arrow as a villain at this point. He really doesn't have another choice, and he tells Oliver that Susan is there, and Oliver has her come in. Susan says an anonymous hacker confessed the plagiarism story was fake. Her boss apologized and gave her job back, and she realizes that Oliver made the hacker make it right and thanks him, and Susan says she'll keep Oliver's secret. He wonders what happens with them, and Chase and Lance interrupt before she can interrupt and tell Oliver that the council voted against impeachment, but Oliver thanks Chase for his help. Chase says that Oliver isn't just his boss, but his friend, and again, that scene is now kind of, I wouldn't say it's creepy, but obviously now it takes a whole new meaning now that we know that, Chase is actually Prometheus, so it's a little bit different than what we saw before. Now that we know that Chase, like I said, is Prometheus, now, like I said, it takes a whole new meaning. So Oliver goes to see Thea, who's packing up her things, and she says that Oliver's right, and she's getting deeper and deeper into the mud, and basically Thea tells him that she's broken and she needs Oliver to let her go so she can try and fix herself, and her brother then accepts her resignation, and they end up hugging. So it's actually a nice moment between those two. I like the way that was done, and I like that Thea decided that she needed to step back because obviously, she's the one who almost ruined him and Susan's relationship, and I really did like the way that was handled. I thought that was definitely very good, but we cut to 5 years later. We see that at the Broadva meeting, Victor tells everyone to align with either Gregor or Anatoly. The other captains all go over to Gregor's side. Oliver arrives and asks for 10 seconds. He shows them the laptop, says it has the records confirming the 80 million rubles in transfers from Kovar's accounts to Gregor's. It also contains 40 million rubles from Kovar that Gregor hasn't disclosed, and Victor confirms the evidence tells anyone who wishes to cast a new vote. Half of the captains go to Anatoly, making Victor the deciding vote. Victor goes to Anatoly, and Gregor has his men open fire on the others. So we don't really know how this is going to go. I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there. But Oliver then returns to the bunker, says that he wasn't impeached, and Felicity and Dinah both worry that the cop will come after them now that they believe Arrow is a cop killer. So Curtis says he's getting back with Paul, and Oliver tells them to all have fun. He thanks them all for working hard and banding together. Curtis cuts him off to leave. He arrives at the restaurant, joins Paul. He tells Paul he loves him, but Paul then gives him divorce papers. So Paul's not there to make do of things. He's there to end it. Like, he wants to have a divorce, and he apologizes, and it's very sad. I don't know really where that's going to go. But Felicity arranged a meeting with Elena and says that she's ready to join Helix, so it actually seems like she is going to go back into that Helix world, and we'll have to see how that works out for her. But then we go to the ending here where Susan goes to her car. Chase approaches her, says he has an exclusive. She tries to leave, saying that she has a dinner. Chase then stops her, says it's a matter of life and death. We don't know what's going to happen here, but that is the way this episode ends. Really great stuff overall. Let's see in this episode and where we're going to go from here. So, wow, I mean, really, what an episode this was. I mean, I think we kind of all knew that Chase was going to be the culprit of Vigilante. We did not know he was going to be Prometheus, though, and I like the show actually did take it, like I said, one step forward into knowing that Chase is Prometheus. Now, Vigilante, on the other hand, they said they're actually not going to reveal him this season, and he's going to be going on for a while, which I like because it actually proves that we have a secondary threat for Oliver and not just a villain of the week, which I'd rather have that than a villain of the week. I don't like it when the show does that, I get it, it's episodic TV. You've only got 23 episodes. There's just so much you can milk in those 23 episodes. I understand that. But knowing that Chase is Prometheus, I don't really know where this is going to go. How long has Chase been following Oliver? What beef does Chase have on him? What is Chase connected to? There's a lot of stuff we need to uncover with Chase, and I'm hoping that the show does give us a flashback type episode, i.e. what they did with Wells and season 1 of The Flash, and get into his real hatred for the Arrow. What is Chase's main goal here? What is he really trying to accomplish? We don't know at this point, and I can't wait to see really where that's going to go, because I think that's going to be very interesting to see what ends up going on there, because I think that's going to be very well done. I like that Oliver is on good terms with Susan now, and she's agreed to keep a secret. She's not going to reveal that he's the Arrow, but at the same time, he now needs to demonize the Arrow. He needs to act like the Arrow is this cop killer because of the reputation that he has, and it's sad to see, but that's what he has to do now. We'll have to see what's going to happen there. Felicity's now going into Helix. Who knows what's going to happen, if she's going to be a hacker now and get back into that job. We don't really know. But I did like how she explained to Douglas she really didn't have any more empathy anymore, because a lot of people didn't really care when Billy died. So that's why she doesn't really give a shit now. It's just because she doesn't really have that empathy. And I think it's an interesting direction to take Felicity in. I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen there. I think that's going to be very interesting as well, to see what happens there. Curtis is in probably one of the worst situations of his life. Now he knows that his husband actually wants to get divorced from him, which is very sad to see. I don't know what's going to happen there. I felt very bad for Curtis in that situation, so I don't know if he's actually going to sign the papers, and we'll try to get Paul back on his side, but I'm just going to make an assumption here that they're done and that this is not going to work out. We'll have to see. I don't think it's going to, but again, I don't know. And then as far as the flashbacks, I really am interested in seeing where the flashbacks are going to go at this point, with Gregor and Kovar. I'm interested in seeing what they're going to do there. I think it's going to get very interesting, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Overall, guys, a really great episode. A lot of great stuff going on here. Like I said, some fantastic action, topped with a really great reveal that really is going to shape the rest of the season now that we know who Prometheus is. Now, a lot of motives make a lot more sense, and I can't wait to see really where we're going to go with that. But overall, guys, I really did love this episode overall. My only complaint, like I said, is I know Chase, he definitely was the best choice, but it was a bit predictable. But it was the choice twist that I truly did want, but because I just didn't feel it had the weight that it really needed. Like, it felt like this would make more sense if they did at the end of the episode rather than the middle. But either way, I still really did like this episode overall, and I am going to give Arrow Season 5, Episode 15, Fighting Fire with Fire, a 4.5 out of 5, or an A-. But over, guys, Mary of Arrow. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Love your thoughts. And I know I've done a shit ton of reviews today. I'm sorry about that. I wasn't able to review stuff till today. But I will see you guys in the next, which will be for tonight's episode of Arrow, Legion as well. And then I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.